Now we're going to talk about statements and blocks, or blocks of statements. An expression, what we've seen so far, like A equals B plus C, with a semicolon on the end, becomes a statement. So we've talked about how to make expressions, all the precedence of operators, things like that. Now we're going to turn expressions into statements of work. Those statements of work are then grouped together into a compound statement or a block of code. The blocks of code then can be managed. How do you get into a block of code? How do you get out of a block of code? How many times do you perform a particular block of code in a loop? Those compound statements or blocks are noted by braces. And you can see braces right there. We have an open and a closed brace. They're not squiggly brackets. They're not weird parentheses or anything like that. I've heard them called all kinds of stuff. They are called braces. And braces group our statements into compound statements or blocks. We've already seen braces. You remember when you created main and then you had open close parentheses, different little animal, and then you had an open brace. Well, that surrounded all the statements, in our case just one, of that printf of hello world. The braces surround all the statements of the function definition. And we'll see that braces surround multiple statements in loop constructions too, when we start creating loops, which is just very shortly here. Now here's our little main program again, and it is, or contains, I should say, a block of statements. And there's the open brace. Notice there's no semicolon or anything here though. And there's the closed brace. Again, there's not a semicolon when you use a construct like this, when you have the open brace and the closed brace, because it's not doing any work. It's defining the statements that will make up the work. Now the work statement, something that does something, that needs a semicolon. That needs an end of line character. And that's what the semicolon does for us. It tells C, we're done with this statement. Go down to the next line and start reading again and figure out what goes on down there. And then it'll see this closed brace and go, okay, I need to match that with the brace I found up here, and it will match them up and know that that's the end of a block. Since we had open and closed parentheses up here without a semicolon, it understands that it just defined a function. This is the stuff that makes up main inside the statements and blocks. When we're doing a loop, there is a while loop. Look at that. It doesn't have any braces. Well, that's because it's only controlling one statement. It has this semicolon out here. So that tells us that a number of statements inside braces, like this, are a block of code, or a statement block, a compound statement, which is the same as this one little simple statement right here with the semicolon. So that means that this while could control a bunch of things if there were only a brace between the while and the printf and then after it to close this up. So let's take a look at that. There we go. There's an open brace. And now we can put a whole bunch of statements in here, hundreds and hundreds of them. And you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't have a while that's that big, but you could put a whole bunch of statements in here, and then there's our closed brace. C will keep it all straight because it remembers how many braces it has seen, that it has opened, and another open, and then a close, and then another close. So the compiler will keep track of all that. So that's a statement block for a loop. Now some people like to program this way. They put this brace out here at the end, and then they tag the closing brace underneath at the same tab stop, underneath the opening statement or opening reserved word of the loop. That's not the way I was trained, though that's the way you'll see a lot of C programming done. I tend to lose this brace if I put it out there on the end. You'll see this a lot in magazines if you see listings, because remember, magazines sell by the inch, so they don't need one more blank line taking up space. So they'll put their open brace up here after the parenthesis, just so you know what's going on. This is the way I was trained to do open and close braces. I put them underneath the W of the reserved word of the statement of the loop. So here's the while loop, and here's the test, and we'll see that when we talk about these kinds of loops. But there's our test, and this is the work that's being done for the while. So I have an open brace there and a closed brace there, and it's real easy for me to scan down the page and find these braces and then fit in whatever lines and function calls and things like that that I need in here. So that is statements and blocks with loops, and we've looked at braces and how braces control a number of statements to make up a compound statement.